Welcome to VC's Off the Record. This is Real Talk with Real Investors. Your host, Gayla Jennings-O'Byrne, CEO of Wocstar Capital and co-founder of the Wocstar Fund, has spent 30 years in finance. And I'm here too. I'm Victoria Byrd. I'm the Chief Content Officer and Creative Director of Wocstar Media. And I've spent 30 years in media. We champion female entrepreneurs, we champion diverse teams, and we're both passionate about stories that change old narratives. We're looking to inform you, inspire you, and help you get your bag and your dreams.
Hey, Victoria, welcome back to another episode of VC's Off the Record.
I'm feeling welcomed.
You look fabulous. I think this is your color, baby blue.
I love blue. It's very like earth. It's very sky. That's I sound ridiculous. But
you look fabulous
while
you're sounding however you're sounding.
Thank you.
And did you see that was a little tough love? That's what we're going to be talking about today.
I know. You know, I want you to always check me when I need to be checked. And that's a hard thing to have.
But that is me being a friend.
Yeah. It's tell me the truth.
Why would I let you out the door looking crazy?
Right.
Fly down, zipper down, and broccoli in your teeth? Why would I do that to you?
Right. And if I find that I have broccoli in my teeth and I've been hanging, and then I go home and I see it and I think, wow, she didn't tell me.
Yeah.
It might be embarrassing for like a nanosecond. Oh, your bra's showing. Oh, whatever. Something in your tooth. Right?
Right? Isn't that the worst feeling when you get home? You're like, I was with my girls all night and nobody told me.
But it's the same thing with creativity, and I imagine the same thing with investing. People will come to us and say, do you want to invest in this project? And they'll send me a pitch deck. And I'll go, why don't we just discuss this pitch deck first?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's not right. And if you're sending it to me, let me be the person to tell you.
That's right.
This needs to be worked on.
That's right. Yeah. So listen, I truly believe that we need more tough love, honest conversations with entrepreneurs. Like that is the responsibility of the industry as a whole, not just the venture capitalists like myself, but the accelerator programs, the incubator programs.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't put people in a program when you know it's not really going to go anywhere. So
what do you mean by go anywhere when you say when it's not really going to go? What do you mean by that?
Like, don't have them in your program when you know that they probably won't be able to raise capital. They probably won't be able to get the product out the door. The technology is not where it needs to be. Like we need to have honest conversations with people.
Right.
So I love the person who you're going to meet today, Jonathan Hakakian with Soundboard Venture Fund. And I love when they started, it was an angel fund. So they didn't oversell it as some big, huge private equity, large, major VC shop. It was an angel fund. And what's neat is he talks about almost being of service and in service of entrepreneurs. That's really what got him started, was wanting to support and help entrepreneurs.
When you talk about angel fund versus, say, impact fund, what are the different major types of funds?
Yeah, so the difference between angel investing is the size of the check and who's doing it. So angel funds and angel investors typically are writing smaller checks. If they're an individual, those could be $10,000 to $50,000 and up, right? But they're smaller in size. And then angel funds, likewise, are working with very early stage companies, and again, writing some of those early checks, and so therefore they're smaller in nature because they're just those first checks in the door that companies need. What's nice about the angel community is that we need them. So for a venture fund like mine, we need the company to be at a certain size. We need them to grow to a certain size so that we can return capital back to our investors. Whereas angels can be that first layer, if you will, that first phase of funding that companies need. That just gets harder for someone like a fund like me to invest in because the economics at that stage look very different in terms of what I have to
So interesting, because a lot of times someone will try to come in through the side door, through me, to you. And the first question I will say is, what stage are you at? Because I know that's usually
you're learning,
right? But that they should know where they are and what is an appropriate place to seek funding. then in return, right? Someone who's just starting out shouldn't come to somebody who's not pre-seed, right?
Yeah. And you know what you're really talking about is the homework. We all need, what do we still always say?
Tough love. Do the homework.
Do the work, right? That's some tough love. Do the work. And yeah, I get it. Like I was even thinking about our website. I want to have more straight language about what we do and don't invest in. I was thinking about this from one of our other podcast episodes. But yeah, and still there's work on both sides, right? We need to be clear about the things we do and don't invest in, and we need founders to do the work and figure out if they truly are a fit. People need to do the research on who we are and what we invest in. And do the research and the homework, because why waste your time trying to get the meeting, getting prepared for the meeting, getting in the meeting, running through your pitch, and then I got to tell you, sorry.
Right.
Like, don't do that to yourself. Do the work in advance.
Do the work.
So this is going to be a great episode.
Excited. Yeah.
Tough love in service of entrepreneurs. We need more of both.
This episode of VC's Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy.
Hey, Jonathan. Welcome to another episode of VC's Off the Record. I am so excited you are here. You are a hard man to get, but we got you.
Thank you, Gayla. Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, I hope so, because we had a lot to unpack. Like, there's so many things I want to know about you. Let's start where you grew up and what that was like. What was childhood like for you? And this is not a therapy couch, so...
We're going to need a lot more time than this if you want that. If you want to unpack that far.
We're about tough love. I can give you some tough love.
You're welcome to. So very typical immigrant story coming to the U.S. Parents started a business because they didn't know any better. Ended up being very successful at it. But what that meant for us is, for my siblings and I have a younger sister and brother, was that the dinner table became the boardroom. And I didn't realize this was weird until like 15 years ago, like well into adulthood, that I was like, oh, you mean like that's not all you talked about at dinner? It wasn't like employee issues or customers or product issues going on. It wasn't just a giant strategy session every night at dinner. And so that concept of being an entrepreneur and having that fire within me was always there and ever present.
Yeah, I love that. And tell me again, siblings. You said sister, I think I heard, and
a brother.
And so it's three of you.
Yep.
Where are you in that?
I am the oldest, but they are much smarter and wiser than me.
Well, because you taught them to be smarter and wiser than you. That's how that happened. I love that it was not just the boys, but also your sister was at that dinner table having that conversation.
Yeah.
Does talking about money ever get easier now that you've been around these circles?
In my family, you mean? It was always normal. It was normalized to do that around the dinner table.
Yeah. We need to do more of that in our families, I feel.
I agree.
Yeah. I love that you had that growing up. Okay, so you grew up eating and talking business at the
and
same
on
time.
weekends and summers, we all went to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did it start? Was it one store, one client? Do you remember even?
I was young at the time, but it was, my parents will tell the story much better than this.
Oh my God, can we get them on? How fun would that be?
You can. They're not in the VC world.
No, they're entrepreneurs. Hello, they're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
There's so many lessons we could all learn from them.
Definitely.
Our viewers would love that. Love that.
You can do a whole series.
I would love that. Okay, so I mean, they truly started with like from scratch and built this.
Yep, in their living room, went to the basement of another facility, and then slowly just built it up over 40 years.
Amazing, amazing. And where did you go from there? I love that you learned Spanish. I was reading
I
about.
did,
Oh,
yes.
You minored in it.
I minored in school, yeah.
Is that what I have to do to finally really learn Spanish? I feel like I've been taking a course every Rosetta Stone and then Duolingo.
You got to go live somewhere for several months. That's the only way to do it. Because I've forgotten more than I knew at this point. It's been a decade plus.
There it is. But that was a minor.
That was a minor, yeah.
Major.
In business administration. Down in D.C., which was a great city to live in and spend 4 years, but it's a one industry city. It's not like New York or these big cities that you have everything here.
Yeah. And it's a very transient, right? The
Yeah.
administrations go, people come.
Yeah.
Yeah, very different. And then you also have a certificate as a coach. Am I saying that right?
Yes, as a facilitator. Yeah.
Facilitator.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting way to come to what you do now, right? All these different angles to you.
Looking back is linear. There was no set plan, coming out of school or knowing where I was going to go. There was a very distinct time in my life when I remember my mother and I were actually going for a walk. And I don't remember where we were exactly, but the ocean was nearby. And she turned to me, I was probably 19, 20 at the time. She's like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I looked at her and I said, I really want to help people just start companies. And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's really what I want to do." And she hit me upside the head and said, "Go get a real job." And that was at least, 20 years ago. And that's what I've been able to do the past 12 or so years. And it's been inspiring for me to work with entrepreneurs and to hear their crazy ideas and just help them find what is so central to who they are and what they do and help them scale and build.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually beautiful. I mean, I've been not stalking, but I've just sort of been watching your journey from the side.
Thank you.
And it's really beautiful the way you work with entrepreneurs. And I think I think even you call it like an angel fund.
Our first one was an angel fund.
Yeah, it was an angel fund. And I remember thinking, I love that you didn't shy away from it being an angel fund. Like, you weren't trying to be like blah, blah, blah capital and use like big words. Like, it was what it was. And it was like, we're going to get in there and just start helping and investing and.
And that's where we really started. So about 17 years ago, I had a beautifully failed startup, taught me a lot of lessons. And it got me really hooked on working with startups more formally. And so I moonlit, I did whatever I could to work with startups and entrepreneurs here in the New York metro area, which at that time, there was no ecosystem here. It was really small. The meetups were giving away pizza and beer just to get 25 people in the room. And now it's standing room only. And so I would network and do whatever I could. And along the way, I met my now business partner, Richard Magid, who's had a consulting group focused on leadership development since 2000. And so when we joined forces, it was to figure out how to bring the network that I had built of startup entrepreneurs that are hustling and trying to make it to the next level with the leadership focus that he had been advising mature stage entrepreneurial-led companies for a decade plus. And what we realized was this was awesome. Like, they need it, they crave it, they love the advice, but more than anything, they need the funding. And so we sort of backdoored our way into realizing, like, hey, we want to help them, but in order to help them, we need to get them funded. And so by 2012, we launched our first fund with that specific focus of we look at the people and we support them where we can.
Yeah, I love that. I know some guys in North Carolina, and he has a great saying, no coaching without capital. And I thought, yeah, we need more of that.
That's really good.
No coaching without capital. I love how you described it as a beautiful, was it a beautiful?
Beautifully failed startup.
Yeah. What were some of the lessons you learned? Because our audience is on the journey. And so if there's any way we can help them they're going to make mistakes, but the cheaper mistakes are the better.
It's not just that. Everybody's going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's important to have eyes wide open to look out for the fatal flaws. Listen to the market. Yeah. Understand where competitors are coming from. Understand where the clients want you to go. Not because they always know better, but that's how they're seeking the solutions.
Yeah, I like that. And I think if all that is done right or with intentionality, then the thing that I always care about is how they can defend market share. Because they do all of that. That's how you defend market share. That's how you keep clients. That's how you retain, your talent as well. I like that. Any thing that you see in the market now of like where people are building companies? Because you've got a fabulous founder network. Like,
thank you.
Where are they these days? Are people trying to solve big problems? Are they trying to solve behavior problems, green economy problems? Is there any headwinds where?
So we are generalists by nature.
I know, that's why I'm asking, because you're seeing everything.
There are some areas we don't touch, but we're broad by nature because we really engage our investors to be part of our screening and diligence teams to allow us to go broad but not deep. We're not deep tech investors. We're not on the front edge of science. We're on a lot of efficiency companies that want to make business life easier, that want to make new softwares come to market that will allow for things to happen, not just build really cool technology. And where we're focused mostly is not necessarily on the industry side, it's on the geography side.
Oh, tell me more about that.
The Bay Area, Boston, and even here in New York, they're relatively mature startup markets. So there are a lot of VCs, a lot of angels, a lot of capitals focused on them.
Yeah.
But the markets like St. Louis, Virginia, upstate New York, Chicago, Pittsburgh, great entrepreneurs are coming out of there, either from industry or from university, that just don't have the same access. And so we've created partnerships and alliances with a lot of the other investors and entrepreneurs out there to send us the great deal flow, to send us great entrepreneurs. And even if we're meeting them 1 or 2 years early, that's okay. But we want to meet these amazing human beings who are building, and so that we can be part of their journey as they scale.
Yeah, I love that. We are doing so probably a little slower than you. We are going to be investing in North Carolina. We've made our first investment.
Congratulations.
We'll be announcing it soon, so watch the space. But we've got another 5 or so million that we'll do there, is sort of, testing the market out, and then we'll keep replicating this across the country. Because I too believe in this idea that there is other really great entrepreneurs and companies being built that are not in sort of the traditional hubs.
So think of us as co-investors.
I was going to say, so we will be seeing you in some of these deals, I hope. But it's interesting that you guys do that, because there's so much herd mentality in our sector. And it's kind of funny when you think about it. It's the riskiest asset class in terms of the investment, spectrum of where you can invest. We like for the founders to take risk. We like disruption. We like transformation. But would you agree that in some ways we as the investors can sometimes be risk averse? Like we kind of go where, our peers go.
FOMO is a definite fear of missing out for it, since we're doing no acronyms.
No acronym-free
FOMO is
space.
a big deal in our space. And so we try very hard not to do that. We're intentional about, we don't just want to get wrapped up in hype. And when my partner and I set out to build the fund, we said, we don't want to be another VC fund. We don't want to be a West Coast firm. We want to be ourselves, be true to who we are and to our investors. And doing that means that we collaborate with the investment committee and with the diligence teams to make sure that we have a contrarian on the board, on the team, to make sure that we're being intentional about every decision we make, so that we're not doing it just based on hype and who else is in the round, but that it's an entrepreneur who resonates with us and it's an opportunity we want to be in.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you use the word intentionality too, because listen, I know we're coming into really interesting times where priorities may not be on inclusion and equity and diversity, but as long as we stay intentional about like the excellence and the smart investing, protocols that we all grew up with, I think we can still get the diversity and inclusion we want, but it's just the intentionality. So it doesn't have to be wrapped in some big DEI banner. It just has to be this intentional looking for truly good companies, truly interesting founders that can execute. But I do worry about the herd mentality. So I love that you guys are being intentional about how you.
Thank you very much.
things.
So yeah,
we
really don't want to be the same as the West Coast. And what I tell entrepreneurs is, we're not the fastest check. We're slow. We have a process. We want to get to know the founder, or the founding team really well, because we want to have the solid foundation for a long-term relationship. And the only way to do that is to take time and to get to know each other. See each other in multiple different lights, in multiple different meetings, and multiple different times of day, through a sales cycle even, so that we can hear how they respond to stresses. How's the business today versus 3 weeks from now? In startup world, it's totally different.
Yeah. I like how you even said different times of day. It's almost like looking at an apartment or a house, right? Like, like it's very nice on a Saturday afternoon, right? Versus,
Especially
Tuesday
on
night.
Zoom, everybody can dress up nice for an hour.
Myself included.
Thank you. I had help today. Thank you to my wife.
I love it. Tell me this. Is there things that you see entrepreneurs doing that you kind of go, oh, I wish they hadn't done that, or I wish, like anything like they should stay away from, any do's or don'ts? Because you've seen it all.
We've seen a lot. There are two things that stick out.
Okay.
The first is talking endlessly, especially in a one-on-one. It should be a conversation. There needs to be a little bit of back and forth. Maybe as an entrepreneur, you take a little bit more up front to introduce, but the other side should be engaging, because as soon as we're not engaging, we've checked out. There
it is. Hashtag facts.
It's really true. There was one time, and this is pre-COVID, so we were still using desk phones at the time. An entrepreneur came on the phone. We were talking. He started his long rant about what he's doing and everything, and there was a ring at the door. I needed to just put the call on pause for a second, run down, get a UPS package, sign for it, and come back up. He wouldn't give me an edge in. 2 seconds, I could not get a breathing room. So finally, I just put the phone down, went downstairs, signed the package, thanked the UPS driver, came back up. He was still talking. He had no idea I walked away from the call for like 90 seconds or 2 minutes.
I mean, that's like totally clueless to...
Clueless.
I mean, I'm always saying read the room, Timmy, but that is like
no
classic.
EQ, no understanding of the other side. And so as soon as I came back and I realized he had no idea that I stepped away, I was like, there's no way we can invest in this company, because the person has no understanding of other people.
Yeah.
He ranted for another 10 minutes, so like I was good. Went and took care of a lot of other things around the office. But so that's
I miss
one.
regular phone calls too.
Yeah.
Because you could do that actually with the regular phone call. Then it's
You can't do it on Zoom.
And I have no poker face, so when I'm on Zoom and I'm like checked out, like it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
All right. What's the other thing entrepreneurs should stay away from or avoid?
Saying there are no competitors and just leaving it there.
Okay. Oh my gosh. See, this is why I had Jonathan on the show today, people, because he's given some real hard facts.
Especially on Zoom, I'm behind Google. You say that, or when an entrepreneur says that, I'm Googling the problem. I'm not Googling for competitors. Because what does the customer do? The customer isn't looking for competitors. They're looking how to solve their problem. And so a lot of the time, it might just be inertia, which means, trying to change behavior is a tough problem. But what that means is if inertia is there, can you really convince them to adopt your solution? And so I don't really like it when somebody says there's no competition and like full stop. It's more like, well, if there's no competition, why has nobody else addressed it? And talk about that.
Yeah.
Say nobody's thought about this problem yet from this perspective because.
Yeah, I love that you say that. I push back on that, and sometimes I say, so if there's no competitors, is there a market?
Exactly.
And then I just I just let that hang in the air for a minute. So I love that you do that. Okay, those are so good. Okay, listeners, viewers, please keep those in mind, because they can be the kiss of death for sure.
It just shows an unawareness.
Yeah.
Both of those things, it means that the entrepreneur isn't listening to the market, isn't listening to who's on the other end of the phone, like doesn't have good observational skills.
Yeah. And those are key. I mean, we're looking at a deal
from that is not the data itself. No founding team is perfect. Nobody has the exact, there is no one correct profile for entrepreneur or founding team.
Yeah.
But what's amazing is the conversation that comes from that. When you have a founder or founding team that sits there and is like, wow, this was very reflective exercise. I know so much more about who we are as a team, about our culture. That's who we want to partner with. Versus the entrepreneur that sits there and says, this is bogus. I don't believe in this stuff. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. We did a deal, and it almost broke down. We were going to invest. It almost broke down. I thought they were going to kick us out of the deal because I gave them some tough love. And they came back and were like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, you know what? I wanted to invest in you before, but now I really want to invest in you because like you received it. And again, it wasn't all, just saying what I wanted to hear to get the check, but like we actually talked through like how to, implement some of that stuff.
The industry needs more tough love.
Oh my gosh. I think that's what we'll call this episode. The industry needs tough love. All right. Now, before we let you go, I usually ask people what they're reading.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you, are you going to write a book? Like, you've got a wealth of knowledge. Is there a book in you that...
Not anytime soon.
Can we put that on, I don't know, the 2025, 26 to-do list? Not that you don't have enough and you don't have, like, kids under 10 years old. So
I have two kids under 10. They're amazing.
You're a busy, great dad.
And they are reading whatever I'm reading. I'm reading whatever they're reading.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're reading what they're reading.
I'm reading what they're... Well,
you're watching what they're watching.
I'm watching what they're watching. I have a good amount of kids' books memorized at this point. But I used to actually put my kids to sleep reading company updates and pitch decks.
Oh my God, so this is a third generation.
Well, I had to read it at some point. So.
I love it. So their vocabulary is going to be like all the acronyms that we stayed away from today.
I gave my my older son a spelling test on all the VC terms at one point.
Oh my God.
He's going to hate me for it in the future, but I had to keep him occupied for like 15 minutes while I did finish something up.
I mean, this is proximity, though. Just think about what kind of person he's going to be growing up.
I hope so.
That's really cool.
Very proud of him.
All right, last question for you. Who should, out of your network, who do you think our listeners should get to know next? Who should be sitting there?
I have a bunch of people. How many you want?
We'll take them all, but give us one now, and then I will follow up with you for the others. Because we love meeting new people.
Virginie Raphael.
I love the name. I just love the name.
Full Circle Fund. She's local, fully focused on people tech at pre-seed stage.
Very cool. Okay, our listeners and viewers definitely need to know her. Okay. And yeah, we'll take any other introductions because it's all about helping entrepreneurs, and you've been in that business for a really long time.
Thank you.
Okay, so final question, I swear. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Email or LinkedIn are totally fine. What I will just ask is if anybody is reaching out to me from this podcast, mention the podcast, mention Gayla's name, mention Wocstar, so I know where you're coming from, because it's really important. We're inundated with messages on both LinkedIn and email, and to establish a little bit of connection is really important. It helps rise it above the other messages coming through.
I love that. Thank you. And thank you for being accessible to our audience. I love that. I appreciate that. All right. So we will get all of that into all of our chats so they know how to reach you. But thank you for that. And thank you for being on today's episode. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
This episode of VCs Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy. He is charming and interesting. Great combination in somebody that, and he even,
Wait, can I add an adjective?
Yes.
So you said charming and interesting. Mm-hmm. I'm going to add kind. Yeah, because if you listen to him, he's coming from this place of wanting to help and support a community.
Yeah.
And that started when he was very young.
Yeah.
And he's still doing it. When he left, he asked me, how can I help you? Like, how can we work together? Is there anything I can do to support you? Like, that's kindness.
Yeah.
Right?
He's a person of service.
Beautiful human being. He really is of service.
Yeah, and that comes from such a great place.
Yeah.
And everything else that you may want out of the world can come with that. But when you base your life on being of service.
Yeah. No, Jonathan's a real human being. I hope people see that or saw that. In the
Okay, I wrote some notes that I loved.
Yeah, what you got?
I loved when and again, he does the opposite of this, which is so interesting that it's a pet peeve for him. The not being able to connect, the not having the wherewithal that it's not landing, that you're not connecting, the endless talking story.
Yeah, because what he was saying was that if we don't connect, how can I invest in you if I'm not connected to you?
Right.
We need that human connection, which again is what a good human, a kind human is seeking.
And to bring it to the top, when we were talking about the tough love, I have said to people when they're pitching something or even I interviewed somebody once and they wrote back an email that was just, that you could see there was no care taken when they wrote the email back. The next time I spoke to them, I told them, I said, listen, you spelled my name wrong. And I'm not telling you that because it's my ego. I'm just telling you that tells me that you weren't sort of paying attention to just even before you hit send. Like, knowing that somebody needs to speak is an energy thing. If somebody wants to say something or not say, like, it's all about an exchange of energy. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. The other thing that he talked about that I loved, and you saw, I almost fell out of my chair, was when entrepreneurs say they have no competitors.
I wrote that down, competitors.
I mean, that was a gem. I hope everyone heard that. That was such a gem.
I've heard you talk about that before. How do you hold off how do you say it?
Well, I talk about how do you defend market share.
Defend market.
Like, what's your moat? And then we talk about your competitive advantage, the marketplace.
What's your moat?
Yeah.
I tried to figure that out in my head. You mean like a moat around a castle?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how did so defending your
market share, defending your sales, defending your customer base.
And so what would be an example of a moat, for example?
So having a product that has some real stickiness to it, such that it makes it hard for customers to switch all the time. So think about when you bought your Apple iPhone and that plug that it has, right? You then have that certain plug that you use, and then your Apple taps into your laptop, which taps into the Apple TV. Remember, we all used to have that little Apple TV box sitting next to our TV? Those are all stickiness points that are making you use the family of Apple products.
Right. It forces it, even though I resist.
Brilliant.
The only thing I use that's Apple is the iPhone. And it actually is.
Girl, are you trying to prevent us from getting an Apple sponsorship?
No, I love Apple. I love you.
Don't hate on Apple.
No, I'm not hating. I play games.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, because when I saw that you had
I have a PC for my games.
I was like, what century, what decade are we in?
It's a very fancy computer. It's a gamer.
Well, when you said you were a gamer, then it made total sense to me. Because otherwise, I know you for Apple.
Yeah, and the creativity for Apples is very high.
That's why I was surprised you weren't, but you're a gamer.
It's
so
the games that I really...
It makes sense, for sure.
But I get what you're saying,
so
that it forces you to stay in
the family of products. Yeah. Exactly. So when he talked about someone saying they have no competition, again, it was that moment of him giving tough love. Like, that can't be the answer. Like, people are figuring out the problem. It may not be the most elegant solution, but people are figuring it out. I mean, just because there wasn't smoothies, it didn't mean I didn't have vegetables. And listen, maybe like there's overnight oatmeal in the grocery store, but like I was having oatmeal before. Like, there was
I think you've said it to me before. We got to the club before there was Lyft.
We certainly did.
Yeah, I remember standing on Gun Hill Road at the cab stand, waiting for the cab or the $5 or.
Oh my God! You remember you would call and then a dispatch would
I loved them.
Be like, they'll be there in 20.
Yeah, they got me through college.
Hello. Back on topic. So the other thing that I thought was really cool in what we talked about was this notion of what makes for a good entrepreneur. And it's this listening skill. And listening looks different, right? Like, Are you listening to your customers? Are you listening to your board? Are you listening to market trends? All of us can probably improve on our listening skills. And so I love that he
touched on that. Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that there's got to be a balance, right? You're an entrepreneur. You have to have full belief in the product you're selling. You have to have full confidence and walk in there. And somebody else has said this to us. I feel like it was Jesse. If the person you're speaking with, the VC, the investor, doesn't agree or has a different opinion, be willing to listen. Don't get into the argument at the table.
Yeah.
Don't die on that hill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're giving you a little tough love, a little seasoning, but what it also tells you, I imagine, is that person is flexible, right? The strongest oaks bend.
That's right.
Right? Learn to have some flexibility.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, last point. I swear to God,
Okay.
but I just loved everything.
You were tagging on it for every time with him. You're like,
oh my
one
God.
more question.
Oh my God.
One more question.
Right? So good. So good. I love talking with him. So the other thing that I loved that Jonathan shared with us is the family dynamic around the dinner table.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Like, I want some form of that for all of us.
Yes.
I want conversations about business. I want conversations about finance. I want conversations about generational wealth, about saving, about retirement.
This is such an important thing.
I want that for all of us.
Yes.
Women, people of color, recent immigrants. Like, we all need to be having this conversation.
Yes. I don't know about...
These are real issues.
I don't know about other family dynamics, but I can tell you that in my family, a Black family in the Bronx, middle class, my parents owned their home. They both worked full time. My dad drove the train. My mom ran a blood lab at a hospital. We never talked about money.
We don't talk about money.
We never talked about finances. I mean, I opened a bank account, but like there was such a drastic lack of information about basic sort of like very important things. And now that my dad has passed and my mother's older, having to navigate that part of it. And I am now telling every friend I have who's a little younger than me or maybe more significantly younger than me, have the conversations now. Talk about trusts. Talk about what are you going to do with your funds.
Estate planning.
Right, estate planning. I brought an attorney into the situation. My mother, I felt like I was trying to boot her into the, you know.
Wait, you weren't booting your mother.
I'm not trying to kill you, mother. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we have to get more comfortable with that because I believe those conversations are happening other places.
We need them to happen.
And we need them to happen in our community.
We need them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yes. All right, listeners, go be fabulous. We'll see you soon on another episode of VC's Off the Record.
Thanks for hanging with us. This podcast was produced by Wocstar Media in New York City at the Podstream Studios. Be sure to follow VC's Off the Record on Apple and Spotify. We're also on Sheconomy, the State of Women podcast platform. Please consider giving us a good review or share it with someone. Let us know what you want us to talk about on our socials and our YouTube channel. You can find us at wocstar.com for all the information.